Hey everyone, Gaku here. Thought I'd run a quick performance test using the PassMark software, just to get a real comparison of what my current computer is capable of, and then get a real baseline to compare that to the new one. It's pretty cool software. I've used it a couple times now, and it gives you, of course, all the details about your system. A couple things I noticed are, well, let's see. Memory timings on the new system, I believe, are 99924. So a little bit slower there. However, the speed, as I mentioned, is twice as fast. Interesting information about the graphics card. And supposedly, according to PassMark, the current graphics card, this Radeon 2400, is supposedly better than the dual HDMI in the new system. So I'll have to see what the actual comparison is when it runs that test. Here, the memory is not technically correct. That is, it's got all these USB card readers set as separate drives, even though there's nothing in them. But aside from that, it looks pretty decent. Got all the pertinent information. Let's run some tests. And I did just restart my system, so very minimal amount of things running in the background. However, on the other system, I've already installed all of the base software that I typically use. So it should be a pretty good comparison, I think. Anyway, here we go. CPU integer math. And it won't give us all of the test results in real time, but we can get some basis for comparison. And later on, we can go through and look at the individual numbers and compare them side by side. Check out the software. Give it a shot yourself. There's a free trial. Of course, you can uninstall it after you're finished, or if you happen to want to pay them some money, you can do that as well. There's the 2D graphics test. Hopefully you can see this in the recording. Some of the very old systems I've used and tested the software on wasn't able to run the 3D section at all, but this computer can do it. It's just a little bit laggy. A little bit trippy there. Testing filters and whatnot. (2D) image rendering. Direct 2D benchmark. Some zooming here. Check the frames per second. And this is a little bit of a toaster. It's a tiny bit better than the previous computer I was using, and souped up Pentium 4. But by modern standards, this is a toaster. Whereas the new computer is a slightly beefier toaster. Well, it's probably messed up the video recording. We'll see what happens. Anyway, just went full screen mode and probably lost the recording at this point. There's 6 jets flying around now. 3D graphics, DirectX 10. Same basic idea. Looks like we're now looking at floating islands with a big tree in the middle of each one. Sort of panning around the island. Also a bunch of flowers. Little things that can trip up the rendering, I suppose. Let's see what's next. Memory read cached. Also, something that's fun is you can compare your individual machine to the average of all other users who have run this test on that particular hardware. So we can see where my CPU compares to other CPUs of the same type, that sort of thing. I'm not too concerned about the disks. Not using solid states or anything, so it's going to be slow regardless. Oh, you think I have money to upgrade my discs? No, I just take whatever I buy for $5 from the auction and swap things around until something works. Be surprised what you can get for about $10. So just about finished with the tests. Do a quick cut to upload the results. Also on the new computer I have run memory tests. No errors over 10 passes, so that worked out well. Also the hard drive appears to be pretty well flawless. Of course, it's an older one, but no bad sectors, no rewrite errors, anything like that. So this is my PassMark rating for my old computer, my current one. 692.2. Of course, you can compare that to your own. I'll go ahead and upload the baseline, so I'll be cutting this part out. I went back and ran the test again without running the video capture software, just to see how much of a difference that would make. Made a pretty substantial difference, so this seems more in line with what I was expecting the result to be. So PassMark rating of 805.5. So here we have an 8400, substantially above that one. This is a comparable 8500. Actually, it's the same processor, and just slightly below this other person's test, and this is one particular run of the PassMark software that I'm now comparing to. For 2D graphics mark, I'm not too concerned, but basically there's an HD 2400, and for that same system with the Core 2 Duo, just a little bit worse than that one. Also here I have a Core i3, which is the same clock speed as the new computer for comparison. So currently I'm slightly below the CPU mark for this other system in this particular run, but it remains to be seen what the CPU mark for the new system will actually be, so I'll be doing that here shortly. But 2D graphics mark improved substantially, same with 3D, just by virtue of not having that video capture software running anymore. So now I've got something actually useful to compare, and here in just a moment I'll be comparing these values to the values from the new system. Alright, so I've run the tests on the new system. Here we can make a direct comparison. Overall, looks like this system, the old one, scored a little bit better, but we'll see why exactly. So the old computer 806, the new one, the T1500, the i3 is 745. CPU marks slightly lower, we'll see why. 2D graphics, again slightly lower. 3D graphics slightly lower. Memory substantially better, and a bit lower for the hard disk. So let's take a look at the CPU mark first. Integer math, the i3 was better. Floating point math, this one was better. Prime numbers, about the same. Extended instructions, the other one's better. Compression, this one. Encryption, this one. Physics, etc., etc. The other one's better at sorting. The single thread rating, I think, is pretty important. That is, this computer does better with its single threads. However, the other one has 4 potential threads. So even though a single thread is slower, overall might be a little bit faster. Although with the scoring method, it's slightly worse by 5%. So not a substantial hit, but of note. Alright, so 2D graphics mark. This Radeon did substantially better than the Quadro in the other. Simple vectors, this one wins. Complex vectors, this one wins. Fonts and text, this one wins. Windows interface, not too important, but this one wins. Image filters, this one wins. Image rendering, the other one wins by quite a bit. And DirectT 2D, this one wins. About 3D. Slightly worse for the other one. DirectX 9, this one did substantially better. 9 complex, this one did better. And DirectX 10, the other one did a lot better. Alright, for memory mark, the other one blew this one out of the water. The only one where, or the only test where this one won was with read cached by the looks of things. And also, obviously, this one has twice as much RAM, so available RAM was substantially higher. Disk mark doesn't matter. So overall, let's see. 3D graphics better in this one. 2D graphics slightly better in this one. CPU mark slightly better in this one. But this only considers single threads, so I think overall the other one will be better. Alright, so overall summary, supposedly the other one's slightly worse, but again, that depends on which metrics you use. So let's see if I can swap out some graphics cards. Maybe stick this card into the other one, see what happens with that. Right now, the PassMark rating for the other one is 735. See if I can bump that up a little bit. So I removed the video card, replaced it with a different one, and now I can see the changes. So this is the old computer, 806 for the total. This is the new one in its initial state. This is the new one with the new video card. Here the total PassMark rating is slightly higher than for the old one, which is great. Taking a look again, CPU mark for the new one. And this is a second test I just did, and for whatever reason, swapping out that card seemed to bump it up quite a bit, but this was the last run. 2839 versus 2539. The 2D graphics mark was higher. The 3D graphics mark was essentially the same. The memory mark was higher, even though I'm not sure why that's the case. We can take a look, and then the disk mark doesn't matter. So for CPU mark, the middle one is the computer in its current state, integer math. I'm not sure why it bumped up so much higher this run than previous run, but anyway, it ran a whole lot better. Floating point is a little bit worse. That's probably due to being hyper-threaded. Prime numbers on par. Extended instructions better. CPU compression on par. Encryption on par. There must have been a lot of crap going on in the background when I last ran it. That's the only thing I can figure. Physics is better. CPU sorting is better as it was before. And single threaded is slightly worse, but that's to be expected given that the clock rating is a little bit slower, but you know, it's not that much worse. Plus it's 4 threads versus 2. 2D graphics and equivalent, a little bit better. A little bit worse for fonts and text. Windows interface a little bit better. Image filters a little bit worse in that case. Image rendering is substantially better as it was before. And Direct 2D is on par. 3D graphics, let's see, DirectX 9 was on par. DirectX 9 Complex on par. And X10 again on par. So that's the only one that dropped down from where it was previously. For the memory mark, let's see, database operations better, thousands of operations per second, can do many more given that the RAM is twice as fast. Read cached, a little bit worse, probably because of the clock being slower. Read uncached being better. That's given that it has to search through it, I imagine. Memory write, substantially faster. Let's see, available RAM, of course, that's going to be lower, nothing I can do about that. Memory latency, that's going to be worse to the clock. And memory threaded, substantially better, DDR3 versus DDR2. And again, disk mark doesn't really matter, but you can see the current one outperforms a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. So overall, I think this is going to be a pretty good switch, and comparable video card, a little bit better overall. CPU substantially better, and we'll see how this goes as far as hosting, gaming, recording, and video editing. So, thanks for watching. Have a good one.